But then I actually had it set up to where I didn't actually have to go to boot camp until after the New Year's into '67. But I decided, heck, let's just get it started and get it over with. So I went into boot camp in, I think it was December 9th of 2000 or 1965. So that's when I actually went to boot camp in San Diego, California, the Marine Recruit Depot.
And what was that experience like?
Oh, they're mean. I definitely don't think I'll ever forget my drill instructors. You actually have 3 drill instructors, and there's one that's with you 24 hours a day, day and night. We had the little Quonset huts that we stayed in, kind of like the Gomer Pyle series on TV, whatever. And one of them was always around there to harass you most of the time, but it was pretty tough. I had a pretty good idea of what it was going to be like, though, because my boss had been a Marine, and he kind of told me what the boot camp, what to expect.
Sure.
And I was in good physical condition because I had wrestled in high school, and I was in good physical shape. Plus, the job that I had was kept me in good shape. So everything was pretty good that way as far as the physical conditioning or whatever. But you kind of try to lay low so that you don't draw too much attention to yourself from the drill instructor. But that's almost impossible to do because they make sure that they get you one way or the other. But it's pretty tough training.
Did you develop any relationships, friendships with your fellow trainees? Or?
Well, just you don't really spend that much time with the individuals. I can't think of any in boot camp necessarily that was a super friend. Most of the time you would end up going in different directions, and you didn't really have too much time to think about all of that. But I did kind of have an understanding that a lot of these guys I'm training with, they're going into different occupations in the Marine Corps, and sometimes you think, well, some of these guys aren't going to survive. They're probably not coming back, and I might even be one of them. So you kind of set your mind to that idea that you know what the future is going to bring. You just don't know.
Now, was there when you joined there, you promised this avionics training, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, did that follow basic, or?
No, in the Marine Corps, they kept pounding it into your brain that your first occupation is a rifleman and an infantryman. That's your primary duty as a Marine. So after, of course, even during boot camp, they would take you up to do rifle qualifications up at Camp Pendleton. So we'd spend 2 weeks up there qualifying with the M14. And then part of that, well, one interesting story during that situation, you spent the first week at Camp Pendleton just what they call snapping in. You just learn how to get the proper sight target, how you handle the M14, how you clean it, you assemble it in the dark. I mean, it gets to where you really get to know that weapon well. And before you actually start shooting it to qualify, to get that badge that I've got an expert rifleman badge, in fact, that I wear with the uniform. And while I was in that snapping in phase, one day in the showers, some of the guys said, "Hey man, you got a rash. You got a rash all over your body. What's happening?" You know, and I thought, yeah, I do. What's this rash? So I went to sick call, and it turns out that I had the measles. And I guess this is just a measles that lasts for like 3 days or something, whatever. So they said, well, we're going to send you back down to San Diego and put you in quarantine for a little while and see how things go. The drill instructor, he said, I'm not necessarily going to set you back yet in your training, because if you failed any part of this training, they'd set you back into a new platoon, and then you'd have to be in boot camp longer because you had to complete that before you could move on. He says, I'll wait and see when you get back how you shoot, how you qualify at the range, and then we'll decide whether or not we set you back or not. Turns out that I ended up shooting the second highest score at the rifle range for my platoon, and I won the expert rifleman badge because I was a pretty good shot. And so fortunately I didn't get set back in boot camp.
Sure.
But then we'd go back to San Diego and finish up the rest of the boot camp phase.
Okay.
Then after that, I think, if I remember right, I think I got a little bit of a leave to go back home for a week or two. I can't remember how long that was. But then I had to report back to Camp Pendleton for the what they call ITR, or Infantry Training Regiment. You get to be trained as an infantryman and a rifleman. So that was almost as hard or harder than boot camp was, but it was more physical because you had to train on all the various weapons. We shot anything from M60 machine guns to 81 millimeter mortars. We had grenade launchers that we'd train with, throw grenades, all the various weapons that you use as an infantryman in the Marine Corps. And most of those schools were on different mountaintops. If anyone has ever been around Camp Pendleton, you'll see all these different mountains that are out there. And so they'd have the 81 millimeter mortar training on this mountaintop, and then they'd have the M60 machine gun over on this mountaintop, and then we would have to double time, or basically run from one mountaintop to the other mountaintop. And so they just worked your butt off with that training. But so that was a pretty good experience there.
Sure.
Tough. But
how long is that?
let's see, how long? I think it was at least a month or two. I forget exactly how long I spent there at the ITR training.
And afterwards, where did you go?
Then if I remember right, I believe I got another short leave to go home. But then, then my next duty station was going to be the aviation training.
Okay.
So I went home prior to that for a leave, and then I was to report to Naval Air Station, Memphis, Tennessee. And that's where I went through my aviation training. And well, you go through aviation familiarization, basically where you learn the basic aircraft maintenance. And then my primary, what they call an MOS, my primary occupation, was going to be a jet engine mechanic.
Okay.
So I went through the jet engine mechanic schools, and of course they would threaten you too that this was kind of in the hot part of the year too. I know in Memphis it was hot and humid, and they didn't have any air conditioning in any of the classrooms, so it was kind of nasty trying to stay awake. But if they caught you falling asleep, they'd knock the bejesus out of you, you know. And so a lot of people would actually get these little pills with caffeine or something, or no-dose or whatever they call it. They'd be popping no-dose and drinking coffee to stay awake in class and all of that sort of thing. But they tell you, well, you got the aviation guarantee, but that's only a guarantee if you pass the class. If you don't pass the class, if you don't do well in your classes, you'll still be in the aviation, but we're going to send you up to Pax River, Maryland, I think it was, and train you in some, I forget, I guess they're similar to Seabees or whatever, but they're the ones that go out and actually build the emergency or fast runways, where they put these aluminum Lego type things together and make combat runway things, that sort of thing. In other words, it wasn't a good occupation to be in. So it would motivate you to do as well as you possibly could in these classes, and I did okay. I did fine. Graduated and became an aviation mechanic.
Okay. first assignment following that?
Yep, first assignment was Vietnam.
Okay.
I think I ended up going back to Camp Pendleton for something or other for a short time. I forget too much about that. I think we had some additional training, escaping evasion or something like that. I forget exactly what that was. But then to go over to Vietnam, we left from there and went to El Toro Marine Air Station in California. And they boarded us on a 707 jet that flew, that took me over to Vietnam. But along the way, we made a stop off for a while in Hawaii. Then from there, went to Okinawa, where we actually left things like uniforms and some personal effects. I think there was some civilian clothes that you would leave behind for when you made your return, and a few things like that. We had some additional training. I forget just how long we were there. I think it was a week or two. I don't remember exactly, but did spend some time in Okinawa. Then leaving Okinawa for Vietnam, we also made a stop in at Clark Air Base in the Philippines. Was there for not very long. It was a pretty short stay. I remember seeing all the tropical plants and everything there. It was kind of a new experience for me. Then left Clark to go to Da Nang, Vietnam. So that's where I got unloaded. That was quite an experience getting off at Da Nang. I was in, I think it was a KC-130 transport plane where the back thing drops down or whatever. And going into Da Nang, I know there was some veterans there that had been in the hospital or something, and they were going back in country. And they were all kind of teasing a little bit. It says, okay, when we start heading into the runway, it's good, they'll make a steep approach. He says, we like to sit on our helmets because sometimes we'll get rounds coming up through the belly of the airplane. I think they were just trying to scare some of us greenhorns that were coming in there, you know, but says, so watch out, you might get shot in the butt on the way in. But anyway, we landed there at Da Nang, pulled up on the taxiway, and they dropped the ramp back down to get out and go get processed. And here they got sandbag, not necessarily bunkers, but they were kind of open, but the sides were kind of sandbag, and you'd have people there with rifles or whatever that just getting off the airplane. And you're thinking, oh boy, we're in for it now. But I had to report to my actual duty station was going to be Chu Lai, Vietnam, which was about another 50 miles south of Da Nang, and it was on the coast, and it's where my squadron was stationed. It was VMA 311. It was Marine Attack Squadron 311 that flew A-4 Skyhawks, and they were at Chu Lai, Vietnam. You more or less had to just go put your name on a list and wait for some aircraft to come through that was headed that way. It wasn't like you were assigned to a particular flight. So you just had to put your name on a list that you were going to Chu Lai, and if something showed up that was going to Chu Lai, they'd see if they could get you on there. And about the only place we had to sit was, there was kind of an open, I don't think it was necessarily a hangar, but it was just a cement slab that kind of had a roof over it so that you could stay out of the rain or whatever. Wasn't any chairs or anything to sit on. You just had to sit on a cement slab and with your list on, your name on that list, and then somebody would come in and announce that, you know, such and such aircraft is headed toward such and such. Mm-hmm. And so there was a bunch of us that were going down that way, and I remember that we were thinking, man, we're getting hungry, need something to eat, you know, we need to maybe go to the chow hall and see if we can get a bite to eat or whatever, but we were afraid to leave because afraid if we went to try and find some food